Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and it is time for the Movie Nerds Club to assemble yet again. Over the past couple of months, myself and some like-minded creators have released our videos on our top 5 favorite 2D Disney animated movies and our top 5 horror movies of the 2010s. Well, now it is the month of November, and this month we have all chosen to do videos on our top 5 favorite films from Dreamworks Animation Studios. And before I go any further, I should say that if you like this video, please go and check out the videos from my fellow collaborators on this in this Movie Nerds Club. That's Rachel from Rachel's Reviews, Larry from LC Screen Talk, Ren from Ren Geekness, and Alyssa over at Mainly Movies. Their videos will be linked in the description down below. I love all of these creators. I even host a podcast with one of them, so do check them out. I highly recommend them. But with that out of the way, let's dive into Dreamworks, because when it comes to animation studios, at least in America, Pixar is definitely the gold medalist, and, well, Dreamworks is a tight silver medal. But that doesn't mean that Dreamworks isn't bereft of quality, because in some cases, Dreamworks makes some of the best movies of the year that they're released. And thankfully, at least for me, this was a very difficult list to make. But before I go any further, I just want to say that my honorable mentions this time around are the 2 movies from the Kung Fu Panda trilogy and the 2 movies from the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy that are not on my main list. The How to Train Your Dragon series and the Kung Fu Panda series are the very best things that Dreamworks has ever made. So much so that when I made my first list, or the first draft of my list, the list was dominated by all of Kung Fu Panda and most of How to Train Your Dragon. So for the sake of variety, I just had one representative from each trilogy, and that's the one that I think is the best. And my honorable mentions are the 2 movies from their respective trilogies that I don't talk about in my main list. Make sense? Okay. With all the grandstanding and hot dogging out of the way, let's dive into the list. Number 5. Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. Raise your hand if you forgot this movie existed. Yeah, it's one of those movies where people go, "Hey, you remember Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron?" Pepperidge Farms remembers. But honestly, everybody should remember Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron because it is criminally underrated. This movie was released when Dreamworks was just finding their footing, and they had only released like a handful of movies. Shrek had come out around this same time, and they were about to go full force into that. So Spirit, in many ways, was the end of, like, the first era of Dreamworks. And man, what a movie to go out on. This is legit one of the most beautiful animated movies that I have ever seen. Despite the fact that it was made in 2002, it looks better today than some animated movies that I've seen this year and into last year. If you just watch any scene from this movie, watch the scenes where Spirit is captured and is trying to be broken in by this army outfit, and he absolutely refuses. It's a battle between the Spirit and the General, and it's all through mostly no dialogue. And basically, Spirit gives him these looks of, "You're not breaking me," and the General's like, "Well, we'll just have to see about that." It's subtle, but at the same time, it's all told through facial expressions, and it's absolutely lovely. The reason why it's only in number 5 is because there's some narration by Matt Damon that's kind of out of place. But outside of that, this movie is, like I said, criminally underrated, and more people should talk about it. Number 4, Rise of the Guardians. I say again, raise your hand if you forgot this movie exists. Well, I've never forgotten because I think this movie is excellent. I think, no joke, this has one of the most stacked casts of any Dreamworks movie ever. Let me just read you some of the names. Chris Pine, Alec Baldwin, Jude Law, Isla Fisher, and Hugh Jackman. And that's literally just naming a few. And the concept of all of these legends like Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, and all that joining up to team up is a little gimmicky. It's done very well with a great story and just a lot of heart. I personally am not a big fan of Alec Baldwin as an actor or as a human being, really, but he absolutely nailed playing Santa Claus. And Jude Law is absolutely just menacing as Pitch. This is a supremely underrated movie that underperformed at the box office, but it's far better than you remember. Go check it out if you haven't. Number 3, How to Train Your Dragon 2. So two of my honorable mentions are How to Train Your Dragon 1 and How to Train Your Dragon 3. How to Train Your Dragon 1 is an excellent origin story. How to Train Your Dragon 3 is about as good a conclusion to this trilogy as we'll ever get. But How to Train Your Dragon 2 is the best How to Train Your Dragon anything that we will ever get. In my opinion, How to Train Your Dragon 2 has the best overall story of the trilogy. In a normal circumstance, this sequel would just be like, oh, it's humans versus dragons. Again. But in a very brave move, the story doesn't go that way. It shows that the humans and the dragons are closer now than they probably ever were. Hiccup is no longer a bumbling fool. He grows in this movie and becomes a pretty competent general. And we also have the best villain of this entire series, which is Drago, voiced by the incomparable Digimon Hansu. And throughout all of that, there's also an excellent mystery, and it turns out to be the mystery of Hiccup's own mother, voiced by Cate Blanchett. And even that is compelling. This is 102 minutes of just character growth and dynamics and just wonderful action throughout. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is one of the best animated sequels ever made. I would put it happily up next to Toy Story 2. Number 2, Kung Fu Panda 2. I think you could pretty much just copy and paste my feelings on How to Train Your Dragon 2 into my feelings for Kung Fu Panda 2. Just cut out dragons and put in Kung Fu stuff. But for the sake of just me talking about Kung Fu Panda 2, which is one of my favorite animated movies of all time, I'm going to just gush about it. Again, Kung Fu Panda was an excellent origin story, and Kung Fu Panda 3 was an excellent ending. But Kung Fu Panda 2 is the best story out of all of them. It goes the How to Train Your Dragon 2 route in that it takes these characters in new emotional directions that in any other case would have never happened. Po doesn't revert back to the just fat and smelly panda who knows nothing about Kung Fu except the fact that he's a fan. No, he's actually learned and actually is very competent. And there isn't some BS about how Po does something egregious and has to earn back the trust of the Furious Five. No, everyone remains friends, and basically, if you saw the first Kung Fu Panda, it bleeds directly over into Kung Fu Panda 2. It doesn't insult anyone's intelligence, it just is like, you saw one, now here's the direct continuation. I like the spirit of that. But not only has this movie improved in terms of animation and action, but we got the absolute best villain of this entire trilogy, in the form of Lord Shen, played by Gary Oldman, which, for those of you that are keeping score, is a freaking peacock. And yet somehow, this movie made a peacock absolutely terrifying. I don't know either, but it's awesome. This movie has one of my favorite scenes in any animated movie ever. When Po has been defeated by Lord Shen for the first time, he got blasted in the cannon and is presumed to be dead, but is healed and basically has to find his inner strength. And it's one of those scenes where he finds his chi and he finds this water droplet. He catches it on his hand and then he slowly works his way down to the point where he puts it on a flower and the flower takes it and drinks it. I'm not doing it justice. You just have to go watch the scene for yourself because it's incredible. I'll dedicate an entire video to talking about Kung Fu Panda 2 someday. But for right now, it's just awesome. It's my favorite of the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, and we just don't deserve it. And my favorite DreamWorks animated movie of all time is The Prince of Egypt. After DreamWorks was founded, this was one of the very first movies that they ever made. And I think in their first year, they made their very best movie. When it comes to Bible movies, they can range from the epic to the pure flicks. But thankfully, this falls into the epic category. Not only does this have a stacked cast, which includes but is not limited to Val Kilmer, Ralph Fiennes, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sandra Bullock, Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover, and Patrick Stewart, But it also has the best DreamWorks animation that has been ever seen in a DreamWorks animated movie. Every shot in this movie is just absolutely lush. Every camera angle is just perfect. You forget that it's animation and you just fall into this trance of, this is real life. This is not fantasy. But I think the most impressive part of it is that you don't have to be all that religious in order to get into the story of the Prince of Egypt. I grew up as a Roman Catholic and I still am practicing. So I cringe whenever there's a bad religious movie out there because I know that they're capable of more than that. Thankfully, my faith always lies in the Prince of Egypt. Because even if you don't get into the God stuff, you can get into the fact that this is a brother versus brother story. One of the best scenes in any animated movie ever is in this movie, and I will absolutely die on that hill. It's the scene when Moses returns to Egypt for the first time in a very long time and confronts Ramses and basically says to Ramses, "Let my people go." And Ramses sits on his throne and for like a period of 15 seconds goes from angry to confused to conflicted and then to vengeful. In like, with no dialogue and all in the span of like 15 seconds. What can I say? This scene is phenomenal. And I can rattle off another like top 10 list of beautiful scenes in this movie. The parting of the Red Sea, the burning bush, all of the stuff involving everything. This movie is beautiful. Even though this movie was released in 1998, it holds up just as much now as it ever has in the late 90s. If you haven't seen this movie, just check it out, like right now. Like I'll send you my VHS back there if you want it. But that is all for me, guys. Thank you so much as always for watching. What are your favorite DreamWorks movies? Leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And also, please, please, please check out the fellow collaborators in the Movie Nerds Club. Their videos will be linked in the description. And also stay tuned for my Mandalorian reviews going every Friday. And on Monday, the AFI Project will be debuting another episode, this time on the Philadelphia story. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.